The Valdren war fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their ships bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Commander Zar'thok stood on the bridge of the Dominion's fist, his four eyes scanning the primitive blue-green world below with something close to amusement. This is the species that refused our ultimatum. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. The humans. His tactical officer, a younger Valdren named Kesra, gestured to the holographic display. Their technology is laughable, Commander. Chemical rockets. Primitive nuclear fission. They've barely left their own star system. Zar'thok's claws drummed on the command console. The Valdren hegemony had conquered 4 to 7 worlds in the past century. Humanity would be 48, a footnote in the grand chronicle of their expansion. Earth had resources they needed, water, rare minerals, and a population that could be processed into the labor force. The humans had 1 week to surrender. That week had just expired. What of their defensive capabilities? Zar'thok asked, more out of protocol than genuine concern. Kesra's display flickered with data. They've erected some kind of energy barrier around their major population centers. Our scouts reported a planetary shield grid of sorts. Rudimentary, but extensive. A shield. Zar'thok's amusement deepened. They think to stop us with shields. Our plasma batteries will burn through their defenses in minutes. Open a channel. Let me speak to whoever leads these creatures. The view screen shimmered, and a human appeared. She was smaller than Zar'thok had expected, with dark skin and eyes that held no fear, only a cold, calculating assessment. Her uniform was crisp, military, with stars on her shoulders. The translation software identified her as Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Earth's Unified Defense Force. Commander Zar'thok, she said, her voice steady. You're in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences. The bridge erupted in clicking laughter. Zar'thok silenced them with a gesture. Admiral Chen, I admire your courage, even if it's born of ignorance. You cannot win this fight. Your shields are toys. Your weapons are antiquated. Surrender now, and your species will be given work assignments. Resist, and we will burn your cities from orbit. Sarah's expression didn't change. We've studied your tactics, Commander. 14 previous campaigns, all against species less technologically advanced than yourselves. You rely on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. You've never faced an enemy that could actually hurt you back. Because no such enemy exists at your level of development, Zar'thok replied smoothly. This conversation is over. You have 1 hour to begin evacuating your capitals. After that, we open fire. Then I guess we'll see you in an hour. Sarah's smile was thin, predatory. Oh, and Commander, you should know something about humans. We don't scare easy, and we've been preparing for you a lot longer than you think. The transmission cut. Kesra looked uncertain. Commander, her confidence is unusual. Bravado, Zar'thok said, but something in his gut, an instinct honed over decades of warfare, whispered a warning. He crushed it. Begin the attack sequence. Target their largest city first. New York, I believe they call it. Let's give them a demonstration of what happens to those who defy the hegemony. 63 million miles away, on the dark side of Earth's moon, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the control room of Lunar Defense Station Tycho, watching the Valdren fleet position itself for attack. The station was buried deep in the lunar regolith, invisible to conventional scans. Around him, technicians worked with quiet efficiency, their faces lit by the glow of holographic displays. They are moving into formation, said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's chief scientist. She was brilliant, relentless, and had worked 18-hour days for the past 3 years preparing for this moment. Jake had worked alongside her for every one of those days, and somewhere between the countless simulations and late-night coffee runs, he'd fallen completely in love with her. Not that he'd ever said anything. There was a war to fight. How long until they are in position? Jake asked. 30 minutes, give or take, Yuki replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. The shield grid is holding steady. Power output at 9 to 7% across all nodes. Jake allowed himself a small smile. They think it's just a shield. Let them think that, Yuki said, and when she glanced at him, there was fire in her eyes. We've got one shot at this, Jake. If the cascade doesn't work, it'll work. He moved closer, close enough to catch the faint scent of her jasmine shampoo. You built it. It'll work. She met his gaze, and for just a moment, the wall fell away. When this is over, she said softly, assuming we survive, we should talk. About us. His heart hammered against his ribs. Yeah, we should. The moment shattered as alarms blared across the station. They are firing, someone shouted. The Valdren fleet unleashed hell. Plasma batteries, particle beams, and kinetic projectiles streaked through space toward Earth, enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Zar'thok watched with satisfaction as the first volley approached the planet's shields. Impact in 5 seconds, Kesra announced. 4, 3, 2. The weapons struck Earth's shield grid, and for an instant, the berries flared brilliant blue-white, absorbing the impact. Zar'thok leaned forward, waiting for the inevitable collapse. It didn't come. Status, he barked. Kesra's eyes widened. Commander, their shields are holding. No degradation. No power fluctuation. It's like we didn't even hit them. Impossible. Increase firepower by 30%. Concentrate all batteries on a single point. The second volley was devastating, a focused lance of destruction that should have punched through any known shielding technology. It struck the same section of the grid, and this time, the shields didn't just hold. They pulsed, rippling with absorbed energy like the surface of a disturbed pond. Then they pulsed again, and again, growing brighter with each pulse. Commander, Kesra's voice was urgent now. Their shields are absorbing our energy. They are not weakening, they are feeding on it. A cold knot formed in Zar'thok's stomach. What are you saying? Before Kesra could respond, Admiral Chen's face appeared on the view screen, uninvited. Behind her, Jake Morrison stood with his arms crossed, and beside him, Dr. Tanaka watched with the expression of someone whose hypothesis had just been proven correct. Commander Zar'thok, Sarah said pleasantly, thank you for the charge-up. You see, our shields don't just deflect energy. They absorb it, store it, and redistribute it through a planetary resonance network. Every shot you fire makes us stronger. But here's the thing you should really be worried about. Yuki stepped forward, her voice calm and precise. The shield network isn't just defensive. It's a weapon. A really, really big weapon. And you just gave us all the power we need to fire it. Zar'thok felt ice flood his veins. What have you done? Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. We call it the Prometheus Array. You're about to be the first species to experience it. Jake, if you do the honors. Jake's hand moved to a console, activating primary discharge sequence. God help them. I don't think God's taking their calls today, Sarah said. Across Earth, in 37 locations, hidden in mountains, buried under oceans, camouflaged in cities, the shield generators began to hum with barely contained power. The network they formed wasn't just a grid. It was a circuit, a planetary-scale energy weapon that had been disguised as a defensive system. The Valdren had just spent the last 15 minutes charging it to maximum capacity. The shield matrix inverted. From Earth's surface, beams of concentrated energy, plasma refined and focused beyond anything the Valdren had ever encountered, lanced upward into space. They weren't scattered or random. Each beam was precisely targeted, calculated by AI systems that had been wargaming this scenario for years. The beams moved with impossible speed, bending through space along carefully planned trajectories. The first beam struck the Dominion's fist amidships, punching through its shields like they were tissue paper. The ship's hull, designed to withstand conventional weapons, superheated and exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the darkness of space. Zar'thok had one moment to realize his mistake before his world became fire and pressure and nothing at all. Across the Valdren fleet, chaos erupted. Ships tried to scatter, but the beams tracked them, precise and merciless. Captains who had spent lifetimes conquering weaker species found themselves on the receiving end of technology they couldn't comprehend. powered by their own weapons. It was poetic, it was terrifying, and it was devastating. Within 7 minutes, 40% of the Valdren fleet was gone. Not damaged, not retreating, but utterly destroyed. Wreckage tumbled through space, burning fragments that had once been proud warships. The remaining Valdren vessels began an emergency retreat, their faster-than-light drives charging frantically. Some made it, many didn't. The Prometheus Array tracked them through their escape vectors, cutting them down until the survivors finally, desperately, jumped to hyperspace and fled. Silence fell over the lunar station. Jake realized he'd been holding his breath. Around him, technicians were hugging, crying, laughing with relief and disbelief. Yuki turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "We did it. We actually did it." He pulled her into his arms without thinking, and she came willingly, pressing her face against his chest. "You did it," he murmured into her hair. "You brilliant, amazing woman. You saved us all." She looked up at him, and her smile was radiant. "We saved us all. Together." He kissed her then, in front of everyone, and didn't care who saw. When they finally broke apart, the entire control room was cheering. Sarah's voice crackled over the comms, warm with approval. "Nice work, lunar station." And Jake, "About damn time." But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 days later, Jake found himself in Geneva, standing in a conference room that had been hastily converted into a war council chamber. Military leaders from every nation sat around a massive table, their faces grim. Admiral Chen stood at the head, flanked by representatives from the United Earth Coalition, a government that had formed in the crucible of the Valdren threat. "The Valdren hegemony won't take this defeat lying down," Sarah said without preamble. "We humiliated them, destroyed a significant portion of their fleet. They'll come back with everything they have." General Anton Volkov, representing the Russian aerospace forces, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "Best estimates. 6 months to a year," replied Dr. James Patterson, a lanky astrophysicist from MIT who specialized in xenotechnology. "The Valdren homeworld is approximately 40 light-years away. Even with their faster-than-light capabilities, mobilizing a full invasion force will take time. Then we use that time," said President Maria Reyes of the Coalition, a former fighter pilot who'd risen through the ranks to become Earth's first unified leader. "We expand the Prometheus Array. We build more defensive platforms. And we develop offensive capabilities. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Jake, standing near the back with Yuki, felt the weight of those words. Humanity had been preparing for first contact for decades, ever since the discovery of quantum field theory and the realization that faster-than-light travel was theoretically possible. But they'd hoped for peaceful contact, for exploration and cooperation. The Valdren had taught them a harsh lesson. The universe was not kind to the weak. "There's something else," Yuki spoke up, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. All eyes turned to her. "When we analyzed the Valdren ship fragments, we found something interesting. Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's also stagnant. They haven't innovated in centuries. They've been using the same weapons, the same shields, the same tactics against everyone they've conquered because it's always worked. They've never needed to evolve." And General Volkov prompted. "And that's their weakness," Jake finished, understanding where Yuki was going. "They think in terms of overwhelming force. They don't adapt, don't innovate. But humans, we adapt. It's what we do. It's what we've always done." Sarah nodded slowly. "We can't match their numbers. Not yet. We can't match their industrial capacity. But we can outthink them, out-innovate them, hit them in ways they never expect. Guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale," mused Admiral Richard Okonkwo of the Nigerian Space Command. "Strike from unexpected angles. Use our smaller size as an advantage." "Exactly," Sarah said. "We make them fight on our terms, not theirs. We need volunteers for a new initiative. Something dangerous, probably suicidal, but potentially war-winning. We're going to take the fight to them." Jake and Yuki exchanged a glance. He saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. "We're in," Jake said. The plan was insane. That was the first thing Jake thought when Sarah laid it out in the secure briefing room 3 weeks later. The second thing he thought was that it might actually work. "We're calling it Operation Icarus," Sarah explained, standing before a holographic display of the local stellar neighborhood. "The Valdren hegemony controls 17 star systems in this sector. We're going to hit 3 of them simultaneously: supply depots, shipyards, command stations. Not to conquer, to disrupt, to send a message that nowhere is safe." "With what ships?" asked Commander Lisa Torres, a sharp-eyed woman who'd been training with a new Earth defense fleet. "We've only got 12 operational warships, and they're all needed for home defense." Sarah smiled. "We're not using warships. We're using something the Valdren will never see coming." The hologram shifted, revealing a ship design that made Jake's breath catch. It was sleek, small, no bigger than a traditional submarine, and built around a central core that pulsed with familiar blue-white energy. "Prometheus-class strike frigates," Yuki said, stepping forward. She'd been working with a team of engineers for weeks, barely sleeping. Each one carries a miniaturized version of the array, nowhere near planetary scale, but powerful enough to punch well above its weight class. They are fast, stealthy, and designed for hit-and-run attacks. We can build them quickly using existing infrastructure. "We're going to need pilots," Sarah continued. "Crews willing to jump into enemy territory, cause havoc, and get out alive. The Valdren will be hunting you. You'll be outnumbered, outgunned, and a long way from home." "So, a typical Tuesday for military folks," Jake quipped. A few chuckles rippled through the room. Sarah's expression softened. "I won't lie to you. Some of you won't come back. But if we don't take this fight to them, if we just sit here waiting for the hammer to fall, we're dead anyway. At least this way, we die making them pay for every inch." Silence fell. Then Commander Torres stood. "I'm in." One by one, others rose. Fighter pilots, naval officers, engineers, scientists. Within minutes, everyone in the room was standing. Jake felt Yuki's hand slip into his. They stood together. "Looks like you've got your fleet, Admiral," Jake said. The next 4 months were a blur of training, construction, and preparation. The Prometheus frigates took shape in orbital shipyards, built by workers who understood they were constructing humanity's best chance at survival. Jake was assigned as captain of the Defiant, with Yuki as his chief engineer and weapons officer. Their crew of 24 was handpicked, the best and the brightest, people who'd proven themselves in simulations and combat drills. They trained until they could navigate the ship in their sleep, until every maneuver was muscle memory. They studied Valdren tactics, psychology, technology. They learned to think like the enemy so they could predict and counter every move. And in the quiet moments between training sessions, Jake and Yuki built something too. A relationship forged in the crucible of approaching war, stolen kisses in maintenance corridors, whispered conversations in the observation deck while Earth rotated slowly below. "What do you think happens after?" Yuki asked one night, her head resting on Jake's shoulder as they watched the stars. "If we win, if we survive, what does humanity become?" Jake considered. "Something new. We were never meant to stay on Earth forever. Maybe the Valdren did us a favor, forcing us to reach for the stars ahead of schedule." "That's optimistic." "I'm an optimist. I have to be. Otherwise, what are we fighting for?" She turned to look at him, her expression serious. "Jake Morrison, if we live through this, I want everything. A future, a life, maybe even kids, if that's not too crazy to think about." His throat tightened. "That's not crazy. That's something worth fighting for." They kissed under the light of distant stars, two people stealing a moment of peace before the storm. Launch day arrived with startling suddenness. 12 Prometheus frigates sat in formation in high orbit, their crews running final checks. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every ship's main screen. "You all know your targets," she said, her voice steady and strong. "You know the risks. I won't give you some grand speech about duty or honor. You all understand what's at stake. But I will say this. You represent the best of humanity. You're smart, brave, and adaptable. The Valdren think they know how this war will go. Prove them wrong. Show them that humans don't just survive. We thrive. We overcome. We win. Good luck and good hunting." The screen went dark. Jake settled into the captain's chair on the Defiance bridge, his crew around him. Yuki sat at the weapons console, her fingers steady on the controls. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, their pilot, flexed his hands on the helm controls. Dr. Samir Osei, the medical officer and xenobiologist, monitored life support systems. Each person knew their role perfectly. "Helm, take us out," Jake ordered. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system. Jump on my mark." The Defiant and her sister ships accelerated away from Earth, building velocity. The quantum drives hummed to life, folding space around them. Jake watched his homeworld shrink in the view screen, a blue marble that held everything he loved. "All ships report ready for jump," Webb announced. Jake took a breath. "Then let's go make some noise." Mark. Reality twisted. The universe folded in on itself, and the Defiant pierced the veil of normal space, hurtling across light years in a heartbeat. When they emerged, the stars were different, unfamiliar, and directly ahead, the Valdren shipyard station loomed like a mechanical city in the void, ships in various states of construction docked to its massive arms. "Target acquired," Yuki said, her voice calm. "Beginning attack run. All ships, weapons free," Jake commanded. "Let's remind them what humans can do." The Defiant dove toward the station, moving with a speed and agility that no Valdren vessel could match. Behind them, 3 other frigates followed in perfect formation. The station's defensive batteries came online, firing streams of plasma, but the human ships danced through the barrage, their pilots performing maneuvers that would have killed lesser crews from the G-forces alone. "Prometheus Array charged," Yuki announced. Firing. The Defiant unleashed a lance of pure energy that struck the station's primary reactor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor went critical, and a chain reaction tore through the station's superstructure. Secondary explosions blossomed like deadly flowers, and the massive structure began to tear itself apart. Confirmed hits on the docking clamps. Marcus shouted. 3 ships destroyed, 4 more damage beyond repair. "Break off! Break off!" Jake ordered. "Get us clear before." The station exploded in a flash that rivaled a small sun. The Defiant rode the shockwave, her shields flaring but holding. Jake's teeth rattled in his skull, but they were alive, and behind them, a multi-billion-credit Valdren shipyard was nothing but expanding gas and debris. "That's for Earth," Jake said quietly. Across 3 star systems, the pattern repeated. Human ships struck from nowhere, hit hard, and vanished before the Valdren could respond. Supply convoys were destroyed. Communication relays were sabotaged. Command stations were crippled. It wasn't enough to win the war, not even close, but it was enough to sow chaos, to make the Valdren hesitate, to prove that humanity could strike back. The Defiant limped back to Earth 3 weeks later, her hull scarred and her crew exhausted but alive. They'd completed 5 missions, destroyed 24 Valdren vessels, and made it home with only minor casualties. As they approached Earth, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They'd done it. They'd survived. The ship docked at Station Unity, the massive orbital platform that served as humanity's military headquarters. As the crew disembarked, they were met with cheers, with celebration. They were heroes. But Jake only had eyes for Yuki. She caught his gaze across the docking bay, and they moved toward each other through the crowd. When they met, he pulled her close, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a spinning universe. "We made it," she whispered. "Yeah, we did." Admiral Chen found them later in the observation deck, looking down at Earth. "Good work out there, both of you," Sarah said. "You've bought us time." The Valdren are scrambling to shore up their defenses. Intelligence suggests their main fleet won't move on us for at least another year. "And after that?" Jake asked. Sarah's expression was grim. "After that, we fight for everything. But we'll be ready. We're building more ships, training more crews, developing new weapons. And we have something the Valdren don't." "What's that?" Yuki asked. "Hope." Sarah smiled. "And humanity has never been defeated as long as we have hope. Now, You two are on leave for the next month. That's an order. Go somewhere quiet. Rest, because when you come back, I'm going to need you both for something big. Jake and Yuki spent their leave in New Zealand, in a cabin overlooking the ocean. They hiked through forests, swam in clear water, and for a few precious weeks, let themselves be just two people in love, not soldiers in a war that spanned star systems. On their last night, they sat on the beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Whatever comes next, Yuki said, whatever the Valdren throw at us, we'll face it together. Right. Jake took her hand. Together. Always. Above them, the first stars began to appear. Earth's sun sinking below the horizon, revealing the vast cosmos beyond. Somewhere out there, the Valdren hegemony was regrouping, planning, preparing to crush the upstart species that had dared to defy them. But humanity was preparing too. And as Jake looked up at those distant stars, he felt something fierce and unyielding settle in his chest. The Valdren had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. They'd mocked humanity's shields, dismissed their weapons, underestimated their courage. They'd learned better when the sky burned. And they were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It wasn't the Prometheus Array or the strike frigates or any machine they could build. It was the human spirit, stubborn, adaptable, and absolutely refusing to give up. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for the first time since the Valdren had arrived, Jake believed they could win. And that belief, more than any weapon, would carry them through the darkness ahead.